To begin my final video, I would like to discuss the minimization of non-diegetic elements in Shadow of the Colossus, specifically those of the machine. Non-diegetic machine acts are characterized as integral to the entire experience of the game, but are not a part of the game's fictional world. These include things such as power-ups, game over screens, the heads-up display, or HUD, and many other technical aspects. I argue that in Shadow of the Colossus, these elements, especially the HUD, are purposefully hidden during the majority of the game. The HUD is not completely eliminated, as it will show up briefly with a change in health, grip, or the switching of a weapon, but it fades away just as quickly as it appears. This is to increase the immersion of the gameplay and the narrative. In a study conducted by Anna Cox and 4 others in removing the HUD from games, they postulate that the absence of the HUD makes the game more immersive. This certainly rings true in Shadow of the Colossus, as it endeavors to get non-diegetic information out of the way as you become invested in the travel through the massive landscape, almost as though you're in a film, as opposed to a game. Cox et al. Refer to this as total immersion, and add that another feature, engrossment, is also heightened by the minimization of the HUD. Engrossment refers to the empathy a player has for the characters in a game, and it is easier to empathize with characters that feel real, as opposed to fictional. Along these same lines, power-ups in Shadow of the Colossus are included into the diegesis of the game, to maintain immersion. Fruit that hangs from the trees will increase a player's health, while lizards with special tails will increase their grip. Instead of just giving them to the player, Shadow of the Colossus relies on them exploring the landscape and discovering these features through their own experimentation. This mechanic essentially makes the line between what is diegetic and non-diegetic quite indistinct, as phrased by Galloway. Some players will go through the entire game not knowing about these power-ups, inadvertently making the game harder, but attributing to the contentious nature of the story. As Sicart describes in his essay, Shadow of the Colossus is designed to present players with an insurmountable enemy and equips them with just the bare abilities. And to achieve this, the game must produce its own non-diegetic acts. The last point I wish to discuss is on the ending of Shadow of the Colossus, due to its unique execution as it inverts the role of the operator and the machine. The penultimate actions of the player are to control Dorman, a Colossus-sized character who possesses Wanda, and battle against the priests Wanda originally betrayed. In this instance, the player is now bound by the actions of the machine. Their movements and attacks are timed and slow, like those of an NPC. It serves as the proverbial final punishment for their crime, as the player is stabbed and shot by the priests in the same method they once employed. The diegesis of the machine and operator has not changed, but their perspective has switched. This inversion is further accentuated by the final actions of the player in the game. Once the priests activate the spell to seal Dorman, the player has a chance to hold onto ledges and walls in an attempt to save themselves. The effort is futile to say the least, and Wanda is pulled into the whirlpool. Sicart argues that the grip and climbing mechanics of Shadow of the Colossus has no influence on the central gameplay of the story, but I argue it is almost paramount to the end. No matter how high the player gets their grip, they cannot save themselves, much like the machine cannot stop the defeat of its final boss. This bold ending harkens back to Galloway's idea of arresting player desires. It is natural to want Wander to survive, but the rules of the machine dictate that his end is inevitable, and the player's actions are an illusion of choice. To conclude this video, I would like to summarize what has been said thus far. Galloway's diegetic operator machine acts are the basis for all games since their development. While some are heightened and others diminished, there is always the presence of all 4. In Shadow of the Colossus, it utilizes all of them to drive its dark narrative through the opposition of its diegetic acts, the reduction of its non-diegetic acts, and the overall reversal of the machine and operator. Shadow of the Colossus was a landmark game in 2005, and it set the standard for what games could do with narration and story through the actions of their characters and the setting that they put it in. It remains an inspiration for games to this day, and it will continue to inspire them for many years to come.